Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Meta Cafe. Grab your cup of coffee, your tea, your water, whatever it is, and sit back. We have a lot to talk about today. And it's amazing because I could have swore when I walked away from my desk, I had a minute and a half left for the broadcast. And I came back and it said start broadcast, and I was only gone for 30 seconds. And I know this because I put my coffee in the microwave to heat it up for 30 seconds. Weird, right? High strangeness and antics going on in the world today, I swear. All right. Good morning to Michelle. Good morning, Cindy. It's good to see you both out there. And I'm sure there are others of you that are going to pop in. But like I said, I have a lot to talk about this morning. Good morning, Roseanne. And, oh, nice. I just put all my notes out of order. Nice. Very nice. Or not. Here we go. Hey, Roseanne, it's FriYAY. That's Roseanne's favorite thing, right? FriYAY. It's Friday, so we have not only today's information, but we also have the information for the weekend. It just so happens to be that today is also the first day of the Human Design Week, so we have all of that information. And then I also, if we have time, and I'm sure we do, we'll get through a bulk of the Siddhi of the Gene Key 19, which is about sacrifice. Interesting word, right? Good morning, Mary Morris, new person out there. Good to see you out there. Welcome. So let's dig in. First of all, no void of course moon today. We are not being dogged by that. The next void of course moon is on Saturday from 12:38 p.m. until 9:04 p.m. You know, if we have to have a void of course moon, the weekend is a good time to do it, right? Where we can just relax perhaps, or where we can just sit back and enjoy the day, maybe play around in our gardens, get on our bicycles and ride, go somewhere for fun, right? It's a great time to have the void of course moon. And of course, that's West Coast time. So for you people on the East Coast, that means it will be 3 p.m., 3:38 p.m. to 12 midnight Sunday morning. So not a very long time, and that will be the moon moving out of Aries and into Taurus. So overall, when I step back and I look at the energy for the whole of the weekend, it does have a flair for activity and a flair for sort of the potential for conflict or the potential for busyness. But then Sunday comes along and the moon moves into Taurus and we become a little more lazy. And I like lazy in this word, in this respect, because it means that we can rest, we can relax, we can just go on a picnic or do whatever we want to do. There are relatively few kinks in the ironworks, if you will, of the planetary alignments. The moon makes several connections over the weekend, but she does it all the time. So there's nothing spectacularly new in all of that. I think probably as it relates to the moon, the most interesting day is Saturday, where because the moon is in Aries, and that puts her squaring all the planets in Capricorn and anything that would be in Libra and Cancer as well, or any other planetary body that would be in Aries. Remember, because that's the cross, Aries, Libra, Capricorn, Cancer. And so she does make some interesting connections on Saturday. The moon is in a sextile to the sun. It is a good way to use your energy, right? To be in alignment and in the flow from an egoic standpoint or a personality standpoint, and also from an inner standpoint. It would be a great time for a family affair, that kind of thing. The moon, however, is also squaring Pluto and Venus on Saturday. That can maybe make things a little more difficult. Good morning, Tammy, and good morning, Suzanne, and good morning, everyone that I haven't seen out there yet. I'm sorry, I'm having terrible allergy problem this morning. I don't know why I bothered putting makeup on, because I've already had to redo it a couple of times because my eyes were tearing and my nose is plugged. And yeah, I'm having fun this morning. But I'm still here with you all. Okay, so the other kind of surprising thing that may occur this weekend is that Uranus is going to be, or the moon will be conjuncting Uranus. And we know when that happens, sometimes surprises happen. Maybe you have some visitors that stop by and announced. Maybe you get a surprise, windfall of some sort. Who knows, right? We don't know, but we are excited because this happens. Roseanne Flonase, yes, I have that. It didn't work yet. Jessica says, allergy index is 3 times high. Yeah, well, I'm a reflection of that this morning, definitely. And I've been taking Claritin because I know June is going to be this way. So I've been taking Claritin, and yeah, no, it's not helping me much today. Although I did open the doors and the windows. Hopefully just the airflow will help me. But it's a little chilly out here today. It's looking like it's probably going to rain. And so the windows and doors will have to be closed here at some point. So all in all, a good weekend, several different types of things happening. I want to talk a little bit about Friday and Sunday because they appear to be sort of mirror images of one another in terms of the energies. Today, meaning Friday, the moon is sextiling Mars and squaring Saturn. That gives kind of an edge to the day. And I think I've already heard from a couple of people this morning, that are telling me already that they're feeling some weirdness about the day. And actually, the whole week has been weird for some people. That is also part of the moon's transiting through Pisces this week, as it took us deeper into the dream time where we had to come face to face with our ideals versus maybe where things are real. And, I had my own moment yesterday of total disgust in this country. I don't know how. I think it's been buried in the news, perhaps, and maybe I've just not been watching the news, but I got involved in a story yesterday about a young child separated from his father who was emigrating here, or, illegal immigration got granted from the country of Honduras, I believe it was. And at the border, the Border Patrol agent separated the son from the father. And I don't even want to go here because it's very emotional to think of parents and their children being ripped away. But that is the Trump new way of dealing with immigration, is separating the adults and the parents from their children. And they crossed the border somewhere, in the South, but the little boy is now residing in Michigan or Minnesota or Wisconsin, somewhere totally not even available to be able to visit his father. And I literally sat there and cried because this is so unlike us here in the United States. I don't know who we are anymore, if that is, and where's the outcry, right? Where are the people that are standing up and saying, no way, this isn't happening in our country? We didn't treat the Italians this way when they immigrated to our country. We didn't treat the Polish people when they immigrated to our country this way. We didn't treat the millions of other people that have come into this country, both legally and illegally, this way. So this is a new tactic. I get it. You want to discourage immigration, illegal immigration. I just don't think that this is a humane way to do it. All the times that the United States has stood up on their high horse against countries that do inhumane things to one another, that violate human rights. I want those countries to stand up on their high horse against the United States for some of the things that we are doing right now, because it's not human. And I don't know what to do about it, other than to work on my own self, to heal my own self and that own wound that I carry about that energy of being abandoned, being torn apart, being separated. So we'll have to leave it at that, or else I'm going to be on my soapbox all day. So anyway, thinking about that, anyway, we'll see where it fits in, perhaps with the energy coming up with Mars at the gate 19 or at the gene key 19, which we've been talking about this week. And today I'm going to take you into the Siddhi, or the highest expression of the energy through gate 19. But first, let's take a look at the Human Design Week, because as I said, today's also the first day of the new week. The Human Design Week runs from June 8th to June 14th. So through the 13th, and on the 14th, we begin a new Human Design Week. So this week, the sun is at gate 45, which is on the throat center. We call it sometimes the gate of the king or the queen. It is a money gate. It is connected to the line called the money line, or the gate of money that connects to the will center, where the will center is gate 21, the gate of control, where that person is the one that seems to know best how to use the money, how to manage and allocate the money. But gate 45 says, heck no, I want to spend it on what I want to spend it on. So this week takes us into a little bit of some interesting energy around money and around the idea of not just money, but all of your resources. So looking at resources, and you are your own resource. So we'll talk about that again in a minute. The Earth is at gate 26, and gate 26 is sitting on the will center. Let me see if I can get my little cheat sheet thing here and show you. So, whoops, there we go. So we have gate 45 up here on the throat center, right, leading down to gate 21 here on the will center. And gate 26 is also on the will center, and it's leading over toward the spleen. The gate 26 is really about the integrity. And it is if we look at it from a business standpoint, it is the gate of the closer. So someone in sales who's very powerful at closing the deal. And you have this gate, Roseanne. Roseanne says, oh, I could use this gate. You have this gate. I'm pretty sure you do. And so then gate 26 then is also a gate of integrity, being true to oneself. Mercury is going through gate 45, gate 12, gate 15. He's the messenger planet. I think one of these days I'll just take I want to do a study. I'm not sure how we can do that here on air, but maybe looking at Mercury and seeing how he is sort of the messenger. He's sort of bringing the messages of what's coming up for us, particularly now that Mercury is swung out ahead of the sun and is now like going places that the sun will follow into before he turns retrograde. So, and we don't have to talk about retrogrades yet here with Mercury, but it's coming. Every time we see, right, this week, the sun and Mercury have been in a conjunction, and now Mercury has moved ahead of the sun. And every time we see that happen, we should know, oh boy, we're headed for the retrograde. Venus at gate 56, an interesting gate, because gate 56 is the gate of the storyteller. It actually sits on the throat heading up toward the ajna. So let me show you where the ajna is for those of you who are new and don't know what we're talking about. Here's the throat center, and here's gate 56, and it's moving up toward the ajna. So it tells the story. It tells the story of what it knows, right? Of what its experiences have been. Mars, of course, is going to be moving on Monday into gate 19, which we've been talking about for the rest of the themes that we've been talking about this week. But Pluto also is in retrograde and moves backwards, back to gate 54 this next week. And to me, that was huge, right? So if we look at just the themes of what all of these planets and these gates might mean, first of all, we see the theme of being the CEO of your own life, right? The sun at gate 45 says, I'm the king or the queen, but of what? Well, of my own life, of my own direction, of where I want to go, of who I want to be, and how I want to be that. And the Earth then at gate 26 brings up integrity. I want to be true to myself. For those of you who've been on the morning broadcast with me or who have had readings with me, I often talk about my definition of integrity, and a lot of spiritual folks probably agree with this, that it is not about a moral imperative to be one way or another. It is about being true to yourself. In fact, the word integrity's root word is from the word integument, which is your skin, right? Skin. So being in your own skin, i.e. being true to your own self. So we have this being the CEO of your own life, and integrity, being true to oneself. And then we have Venus with that storyteller energy. So that tells us then that we're looking at what story are we telling about ourselves, about humanity, about who we are. And that often that story is told by our actions, not just by our words. And that's what makes me so irritated around the way that we're behaving about immigrants right now. Not that I'm a bleeding heart and think everybody should come into our country, but I think there's a story here that is bigger than that which is happening, right? And that story is that throughout all of our history, humanity has been nomadic. that we have moved and been able to move to better places, better hunting grounds, right? Better, if you will. And it's a natural part of who we are to always be reaching for something better, that when, things have dried up here or when things aren't working here, that we move on. That's a part of who we are. And that story then is a part of humanity. So why are we trying to squelch that story? I mean, that's a story in and of itself, don't you think? So are we doomed to rewrite the story of separatism, of fascism? Interesting stuff, right? I saw a video the other day, and I think it's been around before, and it is showing us the very obvious parallels between what is happening in this country now and what happened in Germany when Hitler was on his rise. And I don't know, it sent chills through my spine, because all of that Hitler stuff was happening when Uranus was in Taurus. And now we have Uranus in Taurus again, 84 years later. And what we see is a repeat, right? The repeat. Hopefully we learned from the stories that we passed on, and we can change the story. And that's what this energy focuses on this week. Also, Mars being in 19 this week begins to focus us on how we serve. How do we serve? Right? It's not about what you do. It's not about who you are necessarily, but how do I serve in the greater context of humanity? And then with Pluto at gate 54, it's our pathway to enlightenment. And this is the second thing. This is the first of two things that brings us to the mystic circuit in human design. So some of you who are out there that have done coaching with me, the longer term coaching, rather than just the reading, we've worked through the mystic circuit. And the mystic circuit is within every one of us. It tells the story of humanity's pathway to enlightenment. And Pluto now is sitting back. It has backward motioned itself backward, retrograded back to gate 54, taking us back to searching for how we can empower ourselves on the pathway to enlightenment. So we have some really juicy energies coming up for us this coming week. And it'll be interesting to see how the astrology, the movement of the stars through the signs backs this up or changes the dynamic for us as we move through the week. I didn't have time necessarily to talk about that today, but it looks like a very interesting week as we become empowered to lead our lives in our own truth and in our own integrity, and watching for what stories are we buying into, what stories are we creating or recreating, such as the case may be, and what the heck are we going to do about it, right? What are we going to do about it? How are we going to change it? Okay. So let me see what comments are going on out here. By the way, how did everybody like yesterday's broadcast with, I cannot remember her name, Rebecca Eigen. She was talking to us about the shadow and the astrological seventh house, which is the house of relationships. And we'd been talking about relationships off and on. Last week, we had another guest that talked to us about relationships. And so some of these things that I've been talking about this morning are all shadows, but rather than being just the shadow that appears, in our personal relationships, these are the bigger shadows, right? These are the shadows that we're dealing with in our human selves, in our evolution of consciousness on this planet. And right now that evolution of consciousness feels like it's on a precipice, and where we can choose to be doomed to repeat the lessons of the past, or we can rise up and surmount that, surpass that, and choose a new pathway forward. So I think it's perfect timing then to have people coming on here talking to us about the shadow, and for all of us to be able to look in to our shadows. Suzanne says she loved it. Tammy, your gate. Oh, okay. So Tammy must be one of your friends, Suzanne, because you happen to know her human design chart. That's awesome. Your gate 26 is defined. Roseanne says, I have the control gate. I see. So you have the control gate, but not the 26 gate. That's interesting. Yeah, and Roseanne says she's so sad about Anthony Bourdain. That is like the second person this week to commit suicide. Kate Spade and now Anthony Bourdain. And I did not hear the details of why they know it's a suicide in Anthony's case, but it reminds me of what happened a few years back when Robin Williams committed suicide. And you just got to wonder what. And I know from a human design standpoint what may be going on, but it makes me sad nonetheless. And it makes me realize that some people, no matter how much love that they're given, fail to feel it. And that usually is happening because of an open identity center, which was that diamond that sits, it's where the soul sits. And I think there may be something there that all of us can look at. I think that's a deeper dive for us maybe to go through one day, maybe in light of the gene keys, looking at all of the gates and all of the keys that sit on the soul center or the identity center. Because sometimes the people with the open identity center, remember, they're trying on everybody else's identities. They're like chameleons. They don't have access to the normal feelings of self-worth and lovability. And they sometimes, and these were very successful people, Kate Spade and Anthony Bourdain, well loved in the world for their contributions to the world, for the things that they say and they do and the life they live. We admired these people. So what is it? What is it that takes them from seemingly having everything to choosing suicide? I don't know. I wish I knew. I wish I had all those answers. But I do know that maybe it's incumbent on those of us who do have this center defined to transmit love outward, as much love as we can outward to the world, so that, people that aren't necessarily feeling loved can maybe feel love, at least temporarily, right? And maybe that gives them a chance to see themselves in a better way, and that to see themselves as loved, as love itself. So yeah, some really sad things happening this week, as it turns out. Cindy Mitchell says, wow, my gate 26 is undefined, which I am doing my best to figure out what this means. Great segue, Cindy. Thank you. So let me remind everybody about your human design chart. Let me grab a chart again here. This one. In this chart, you see these centers that are here's the identity center, by the way, that I was talking about. If yours is yellow, you have access to an identity. You can feel loved. You are lovable. And you have self-worth. Now, that doesn't mean you don't suffer through, times in your life where maybe that's missing or, where you struggled with that. But the people who have this open are only feeling their identity as a reflection of the people around them. So when they're surrounded by people who love and adore them, then hopefully they are feeling that as being reflected. And then we have centers in our chart. Some of them are colored in. Those are places where you are broadcasting your own authentic energy. The centers that are white are places where you are absorbing the energy or bringing in the energy from the environment, from the people around you, from your conditioning, from being exposed to big systems, religion, education, the military, perhaps. And you take that energy in, you amplify it, and you rebroadcast it, but it isn't your own natural energy. So it feels unnatural to you. You feel like you are a square peg in a round hole, like you're trying to fit something on and it doesn't work for you. And often you may not notice it so much in yourself, but other people will reflect it back to you, right? Because that's what it's all about, is that reflection. And so the same thing happens in the channels that connect these centers. If it's white, it is a place where you are absorbing that energy, amplifying it, and rebroadcasting it, even though it isn't one of your natural traits to express. You will be expressing it based on the people around you and not your. I hope that helps. And so if you have, Cindy says her gate 26 is undefined. which means it's open, which means that often then, Cindy, what you're doing is gauging your own integrity on what the people are doing around you. And if that happens to sit on an open identity or open will center, then you may be pushing and pushing and pushing yourself to compete in a world in a way that isn't correct for you. This is a recipe, by the way, sometimes for burnout. Right? Burnout happens here in that center because we keep pushing the river instead of resting when we need to. And this is a big problem throughout the Western world because only 1/8 of the population has this little center defined. This little center here is where gate 26 is sitting, right? And that little center is called the will center, or called the ego center. And it is a place where we get misidentified, let's say, with the energy of production. And the Western world, of course, is all about production. Keep working, keep working, keep working. More widgets, more widgets, more widgets, more time spent at work. It's all about that, right? They're loath to give you days off. Here in the state of Washington now, they have to give people sick time. How many people do you know that go to work sick every day because their company doesn't give them sick time off? So the Western world sometimes is pushing us into this production mode, and it isn't natural. Remember, 7/8 of you have it open. Only 1/8 of us have it defined. So that means there's a lot of people out there pushing the river, pushing and pushing themselves all the time, even when this center, which happens to have an energy of pulsing on and then pulsing off. And if we keep pushing through the pulse when it goes off, we find ourselves with heart attack, stroke, anxiety, depression, high blood pressure. So much physically goes wrong when we're pushing our energy in that center. And and then of course we also have dietary concerns and what have you in the world, but I think we can trace the high incidence of those things, stroke, heart attack, etc., in the world to this center, right? And our misuse of this energy. This energy basically says, I work to rest. And I'm going to give you an idea of how this looks, by the way, because work to rest, what does that mean? Well, have you ever watched animals, particularly dogs, out playing? And they play, they're, wrestling around, chasing one another, and then all of a sudden they both come to a stop. And they just stop. Maybe they're panting and standing, maybe they just lie down, but the will center has paused. They feel it, they stop. They do the natural thing, right? They stop. They rest. They may even take a quick nap. And then they get back up and they continue playing until, again, that pulse goes off and they stop. So if we watch the animal kingdom, we can see this is happening all the time. They're not given to the same kind of production mindset that we have been pushed into artificially especially in the West. Of course, now the East is catching up to that. Basically we have humanity pushing ourselves to always be on task, right? And that is creating a situation where we are burning ourselves out. High incidences of autoimmune diseases, and of course, the other things that we already know about, heart attacks, strokes, etc. So Cindy says, yes, wow, I understand, Janet. How does one not push? Yes, I understand burnout. Laugh out loud. I think we all kind of get this picture of burnout. We've all been there. Even the people like me, I have a defined will center. And I can push like nobody's business, right? I can keep going and going and going, but just because I can doesn't mean I should, right? Because even with a defined will center, you're defined to have endurance, to have perseverance, but you're not defined to keep pushing. There isn't anybody here meant to push. We are meant to receive, right? And at alternate times, we are meant to put our energy out there. It is a pulse and it runs through us. So what do? Well, you pay attention to what your body's saying. I have to mindfully do this every day, because otherwise I will sit here at my computer for hours reworking my website, talking to people, going on social media, doing readings, doing coachings, preparing for the readings, preparing for the coaching, preparing for my morning broadcasts. And trust me when I say there's a lot of work involved there. I have to force myself to get up out of this chair and move, right? Go feed myself, go to the bathroom. Right? There are times where I totally put all of my needs on hold to work. And because I have that center defined, I can do that. I won't get away with it forever. Right? But those of you, 7/8 of you who have that center like that open, have to take breaks. You have to be very conscious that you might be tapping into someone else's willpower, someone else's perseverance. And so, like I said, I make myself now. I start feeling this tingling in my legs. I'm like, okay, that's it. I got to get up. I got to go do something else, or I got to go read a book. I got to go wash the dishes. I got to go put a load of laundry in. I got to go walk to the mailbox. I need to just do something different. And it may be that it is just your time to rest. Your body's telling you, you need maybe 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes. I was talking with a young lady who is a coaching client of mine, and she was telling me that she would sit every day at her desk through her breaks and through her lunch hour, not taking any breaks. I mean, and if she had to go to the bathroom, it was run to the bathroom, come back, sit down, go back to work. I went, you can't do that. You cannot do that. You know, you're only 35 right now, and maybe your body's saying, okay, I can do this. But you get much older and you keep doing that, and all kinds of other symptoms are going to show up. So you almost have to consciously connect with the energy of it's time to rest. And just get up and change, scenery even can help, right? Changing the scenery, going for a walk if you've been working. And you know what? If you have to tell your boss to go take a flying leap because they question why you might be not taking your breaks, because you are taking your break, you just tell him that it is your time to do something different. You can't keep doing that. So let's look at some of the comments and reactions. Roseanne says, I'm a go too. I have to force myself to move too. Exactly. Mary Morris, I need to look at my chart like this. I did online. I can't remember my gates. If you got a chart for me, Mary, I could find that out for you. Or you know what? People have readings. Get readings. I know that this was occurring to me the other day about the millennials. And all of us are kind of tapping into this right now. It's so easy to find information online, right? I can go look this up and I can read about this and I can figure it out myself. Only I can figure out this one piece, but can I really figure out how it all works in the grand scheme of things, right? You're reading something that isn't really taking the context of how it works in your chart into consideration. And I find, that right now, I am getting tons of requests for charts, and they're all from the millennials. But the percentage of the millennials that will get readings is like this low. It's ridiculous because they're getting the information, but they're not living the information that's correct for them. So please don't do that to yourselves. Get the information, do your own due diligence, definitely find the information, but realize there are people out there that can help you put all this together in the bigger picture of your life, because that's not something you can get by just getting piece by piece by piece. Even people like me who are out here doing readings, get readings from other people, because sometimes we lose our own way. Okay. Off that soapbox. All right. So yes, you need to look at your chart. You need to find out as much information as you can, but nothing supersedes having a reading from someone who knows how to look at this and interpret all of it together. But the area it comes from. So my gate 26 is open, but the area it comes from is red. Cindy, absolutely. So you're very much like me. You have an open gate 26 on a defined will center. So you are defined to use willpower, to use determination and persevere and use endurance, right? You can endure, but gate 26 is still open. And what are you enduring and doing? Is it something that's correct for you? Right? Is it, This is totally off the subject for today, but that's okay, because I think it's really important to understand this, because sometimes those of you that have this center defined are pushing and pushing and pushing yourselves in something that isn't correct for you, right? And you feel it. You know it's not right for you because you feel tired at the end of the day, and not the tired that feels good, like I've had a great day. It's the tired of, oh God, and I've got to go do this again tomorrow. So that tells you you're pushing, and you may be pushing your energy in the wrong place. And I would question whether you need to even be pushing. Right? There are times, remember when we were in college, right? And we had to study maybe for finals, or we had a big test coming up, and we did an all-nighter, right? We got the caffeine pills out, or we got the coffee out, and we stayed up all night studying. You can do that periodically, right? You can do that. That's what having the defined center means. You can do that. You can use that energy of willpower, endurance to get something done, to get to that end result. But then you got to rest. You can't keep doing that ad nauseum all day, every day, day in, day out, hour after hour. And I feel for women in particular, because we've gotten ourselves into a situation in our society where women really have to work. And so you're working at home with maybe kids and a family that you're, taking care of. And then you go to work and you work all day. And then you come home, and now you're trying to play catch up to get done all the things that you didn't get done during the day, right? Kids have to get ready for school tomorrow. There's lunches to be made, maybe laundry to do, etc., homework to help finish up with kids. And then you get to go back the next day and start it all over again. So we really, really, really have to look at the higher incidence now for women of high blood pressure, of heart attacks and strokes, right? It used to be that was a man problem. But now women are catching up, as in heart disease is becoming, I think it's the second most prevalent one now, reason for death behind cancer for women. And that's amazing to me. And I don't think anybody else out there has really drawn the conclusion or drawn the parallel to why that's happening. Because we're being forced to use our energy in a way that isn't natural. Watch your animals. Watch your animals play. They play hard, and then they stop and they rest. So play hard, do your life, live your life, but know that you have to rest. And if you have that center open, you are very much the people that want to push, and not recognize that you need rest. And those of you that have it defined have the energy to be able to do it, but you also need rest. Okay. Any other questions about that? I did it on your site. I'm sure I just didn't get it printed out. I am 59 years old, and this is new to me. What's interesting to me is that it is the people that were born in the early 60s and the late 50s right now who are getting readings. And I don't know. I love that, right? I love that they're getting readings. But there's that big gap, where people aren't getting readings, and they're the ones that are going to carry the energy forward into this world. So it's really interesting. And Michelle, my daughter just told me she feels that way about school, so it must not be right for her. Thanks, Janet. I'm not sure if that's a good thanks, Janet, or not. But you know what? School does the same thing. Artificially pushes our children to use energy that they may not be defined to have, right? I know in some schools they've taken away things like art and music, which are those subjects that give us a rest, right? They do change up that energy of using your mind for math and reading and all of the have tos, right? And I'm not saying that education is wrong. I'm saying that you're taking our kids and you're putting them in the same position that the adults find themselves in, and setting them up for a future of possible problems in heart. And anyway, on and on, right? So lots needs to take place in the outer world to change, but all of that change starts within us. It all starts with us. And when we stand up and we say, I'm not doing this anymore, I'm not working through my lunch, I am not working through my breaks, I'm going to go take a 5-minute meditation, right? I'm going to go walk for 10 minutes or take my lunch hour and actually go do something fun or, rest. Every day, my husband at his lunch hour takes a nap, and we actually find it amusing, right? But he has an open will center. He's doing exactly the right thing, getting away from it all. He'll go eat his lunch, and then he'll go up and lay down on a cot that he's put in a corner of the warehouse that he works in, and he takes a nap. Sets his little telephone alarm to wake him up 5 minutes before he needs to be back, and he goes back to work rested. Other countries take long lunches, take siestas. They take breaks that are called siestas. A siesta means rest in Spanish. So they're not working through their lunch hours. They're taking a rest. And that is something that we've gotten out of the, remember in kindergarten, at least in my kindergarten, the kindergartners had to go take naps. And I resented that when I was a kid. But certainly now when I think back, I'm like, why not? Just let the kids lay out in the grass, put their heads down on their desks, give them 15 to 20 minutes just to recharge without having to do anything, irregardless of their lunch or their recess time. This needs to be built into the day. Give them the image that it's okay to rest. That rest is as important as action, as activity. Wow, we're changing paradigms here today. So anyway, interesting stuff. Thank you all for letting me talk about that because it's so, so important. Let's see, how long have we been into this today? So let's review a little bit. Mars at gate 19. We saw through the gene keys. Remember, gene keys are organized in the shadow, in the gift, and in the Siddhi, which is a Sanskrit word that just means the highest expression of. And we've already talked about the gene key 19 in the shadow of codependence. And we learned that codependence happens both within our relationships, where we are codependent on one another, or in our bigger, wider world, where we have looked for a God outside of us instead of realizing that we have it all within us. And so it's given rise to some of the world's religions. And I got to tell you, Tom pointed out the other day in the text to me that Roseanne, that I'm sorry, she put a funny comment up. She said, I thought it meant to drink. I thought it meant drink. Ha, that's funny. Okay, so anyway, we found that codependence then is a lot of the energy in through the world's religions, where we've been taught to look outside of ourselves for God, to look outside of ourselves instead of within ourselves for truth and wisdom. And I started to say, Tom pointed out that not all the world's religions are like that. So I might have made it sound like our religion, but that was certainly not my intention, because some religions or some disciplines, I'd like to call them disciplines maybe rather than religions, to get away from that stigma of what I meant. They promote being in harmony with God and looking within for the answers and not necessarily looking without. So that's what the energy of codependence was all about. And the very energy of codependence is beginning to change within our DNA. Our very DNA is beginning to undergo a chemical change that is about shaking up those beliefs that we have, about changing that dynamic. And as it's in the change, it's creating that violence that ripples out. It's creating fear, as it ripples out from us. And violence is one of the symptoms. It is one of the things we could look at outside of ourselves and see that there's a vital change going on, because fear has been triggered in the collective. And the whole purpose, of course, of this would be to lead us back to unity. Then day before yesterday, we looked at the gift, which is the gift of sensitivity. And we saw that sensitivity is about our being attuned to the needs of others, to be able to see how we serve. And being gifted with sensitivity could mean literally being able to sense energy waves and to be able to see literally into the energy grids of the planet, and to see perhaps even the auric fields of everything, and including plants and animals and people, and being able to reconnect that magical realm to the physical realm that we live in. We talked about shamans and how, they are sort of the people that get in a position of bridging us between the magical realms and the physical world. And we talked about the whisperers, right? People, dog whisperers, horse whisperers, people who are in tune with other life forms and are able to speak from that life form's place. And there was a quote I gave you that all of this was about collapsing the barriers that separate us, that we're fusing together the ancient magical realms with the more modern physical plane. And now that takes us to the gift. I mean, the Siddhi, the highest expression of this energy. And this gift is called sacrifice. And that I'm going to have to unpack that a little bit, because the minute I said the word sacrifice, or the minute anybody says sacrifice, what do you think of? Something being taken away from you, or you having to give up something in order to get something. Sacrifice isn't necessarily a word that we think of automatically as being a positive, right? So what we see in all of these gene keys is these energies that they're sort of like nesting dolls, right? Where we have the shadow, and in the shadow is the gift, and in the gift is the Siddhi. And so they're kind of nested all together. So sacrifice in a codependent relationship means you're giving up parts of your true self, right? You're not in integrity. Your gate 26 maybe being open in your human design is telling you that you're taking on other people's traits, right? You're sacrificing your own thing, your own beingness, to be something that you're not, perhaps. Right? So that's what that looks like in relationships. In the shadow, sacrifice looks like giving up your true self, resulting in these negative relationship patterns that maybe, have resulted in divorces or anger or upset in your relationships. And we talked about in the gift, as we started to move up to sensitivity, we could move out of codependence by going to independence, right? And that independence would lead us to interdependence. Interdependence, an interesting word, right? Meaning that we're all, when I hear the word interdependence, I think about like a tapestry and how we're all together in this, right? That if you take a piece out, that there's now a hole in that tapestry. So interdependence could be defined as a state of union with all beings of the cosmos. Interdependence. What my actions have repercussions on all of the other kingdoms and all of the other beings on the planet. And this leads us to the word sacrifice, i.e., the death of the separate self. Right? Taking ourselves and realizing we're part of the tapestry, and being able to let go of that separate self, which, by the way, only happens when you give your heart unconditionally to another, or to the world, or in service to God, or to your spirit, your higher self. And in sacrifice, then, what we have is you're being reborn. Right? You're being reborn as a higher dimensional being, as the highest expression of yourself. So by surrendering your small self, you realize your greater self. So sacrifice isn't something to be worried about. In this case, codependence leads to independence, leads to interdependence, which leads to sacrifice of your separate identity, trusting in the totality and wholeness of who you are, of who we are, of what this world is, of what this universe is. And we've seen this symbolically in our world through our myths. The myth of Odin hanging upside down on the world tree, Christ hanging on the cross, right? He sacrificed his life for our sins, according to the Bible, right? It's all about sacrificing that worldly self, that small self, to the higher self. And in that, we are led to rebirth. And I want to show you something interesting, because gain, and the reason we're focusing on this again is that Mars moves into this gate for an extended period of time on Monday. So we'll be looking at this energy within ourselves and within the collective for the foreseeable future. And Mars is about action. And Mars will come back to this gate after its retrograde. So we'll see how far we've come in being able to let go of these cash cows, these sacred cows that we have. You know, are we willing to sacrifice to serve the higher purpose of the world, right? And I want to show you something. Here we go. So here we go. Gate 19 sits down here on the foundation, the root center. Gate 19 leads up to the emotional center at gate 49. Gate 49's Siddhi is rebirth. So we see a pathway that we're walking here from the Siddhi of sacrifice, and that leads us to rebirth. It's really kind of beautiful. It's really kind of poetic, right? Essentially, this is a mystical initiation. And for those of you, Roseanne, you've been a coaching client of mine. I bet you recognize this as the pathway in the mystical circuit, right? The mystical circuit takes us from the gate that Pluto's going to be sitting at, gate 54, moves us over to gate 19. Beginning this process leads us over to 49. Literally, the mystic circuit in human design shows us that this mystical initiation is part of the mystical experience that we're here having on the planet. It's part of your very circuitry. Whether it's defined or open doesn't matter, because you're still experiencing it. You have all of the human design, whether it's white, whether it's colored in, striped, black, red, you have it. It's just a matter of how it gets expressed in you. It is a pathway that is contained within each one of us to walk this path, right? To gain to come out of codependence and lead ourselves upward through to the sacrificial energy of gate 19 in its highest, which then shoots us right across to rebirthing, the highest expression of gate 49. And there's another part to this that I haven't fully digested myself to be able to even take notes on it yet. And I think maybe we will talk about that on Monday, because now I've been with you almost an hour, and I didn't mean for the day to go on that long, but I told you I had lots to talk about, and we got into other interesting discussions. And I love that. I love that you all are opening up to this, and that you're able to see connections and understand your own selves better. And that was my whole purpose in doing these morning things. So hallelujah, we're getting there. So on Monday, we'll take up the weekly energy report. We'll also take a look back at gate 19 and finish this up. And who knows what else will happen on Monday. We'll just have to wait and see. Let's see. Anybody? Roseanne saying that's beautiful. Roseanne saying yay. I can't see the other comments. And I think that's it. I think I've probably filled everybody up. So for me, it's the end of the week. And I send much love and gratitude to all of you. Thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for allowing me to share these things with you. Have a great weekend. We'll see you Monday morning. Take care.